Thank you all for coming. I take that you all like the title of my talk. My name is Maggie Zorn. I am a lead automation engineer at Mentor Group. We collaborate and help our clients build end-to-end products with quality mindset built in. Today I'd like to talk about how test strategy drives quality forward. So let me know if I need to speak up or get closer to the speaker, the mic. What comes to your mind when you hear test strategy? Is it a long document that you put on Confluence and nobody ever reads again? Does it have complicated diagrams? For a long time, this has been the perception that testing is a necessary slowdown. It's a final gatekeeper. But I'm here to tell you a different story, where testing is not about finding bugs last, but about preventing problems first. When test strategy, so I'm here to tell the story where test strategy isn't just a document. It is your most powerful leadership tool. My story begins when I joined this team at a breakneck speed. My official mission was to analyze the test coverage and create a strategy. My unofficial reality was that I was thrown into testing an urgent fix for a critical feature. The manual testing would take days, and it felt like it was never ending. And I discovered the scary truth. There was 0 unit test coverage. And the architecture was unnecessarily complicated that no one fully understood it. So every change we introduced was a gamble. Sometimes we don't even know if it will work until we deploy it into production. It was a very reactive way of working, and this meme very correctly described my life and my peers' life. We were putting out fires every day, but we tried to stay calm, but the fire life just never ended. I asked the developer to add in some unit tests, and this is the response I got back. I can add them, but I don't know how it helps with your testing. This developer's comment wasn't a personal failure. It's a symptom of a system where quality is seen as my job, not our job, and not important. And from what I was experiencing, it's clear to me that in that culture, quality or testing was an afterthought rather than thinking about it beforehand. And the result was that nobody truly felt responsible for preventing problems up front. The first step in any good strategy is understanding the landscape. I wanted to understand, apart from the lack of test automation coverage, what else is there? And I needed to be a detective. I mapped out the whole path to production, and that's the complete journey that an idea takes from its own ideation all the way to the user screen. I found out that the development were often bundled together, as many as 10 stories to be done by one developer. And then the whole epic gets put forward to one QA for testing. And this created the traffic jam in the test environment because many streams would be happening at the same time, but only one feature branch gets to be deployed to the test environment. And if one failure happened, everything else was blocked. Everybody else has to wait until this is resolved, and then we can continue. The feedback loop was slow. Because of the manual testing and the amount of testing they had to do, by the time the QA gets to the problem area, it would have been days after the changes were deployed into production, into test environment. Apart from the testing bottleneck, I saw 3 other strategic gaps. There's the disconnect on the left, the developers were trying to go fast, but like running in a maze. There was no shift left because there was no shared ownership or understanding of what quality meant for code. The existing limited end-to-end test results were untrusted and ignored. There's also the blind spot on the right. There was no production monitoring setup. Someone decided that the email alerts we got from production were noises and decided to turn it off without telling anyone. And that directly resulted in us not knowing a critical incident happened for 2 weeks in production. And we lost important customer data. Visibility is the true meaning of shift right, and we were missing it completely. And lastly, we have the business in the middle, trying to lead the team forward by saying, go faster, but at the cost of quality. Looking at these gaps and thinking about my mission to create test strategy and try to improve quality, I realized that this isn't just a testing problem. This isn't just a technical or engineering problem. This is a strategic and cultural problem. And this is an everyone problem. A test strategy shouldn't just be about testing. It's about aligning the entire delivery system towards a common goal. And my job was no longer just the QA. It was to lead that alignment and cultural shift. So I presented my analysis to the stakeholders. I showed them the map of their own maze, the bundled releases, the testing bottleneck, and the blind spot in production. And they were shocked. They knew things were bad, but they didn't know it was that bad. They used to their status quo and forgot that it shouldn't be the only way forward. They acknowledged that they needed improvements and asked me to build a roadmap. But I knew that if I just went off and create a plan, it would have been my plan, not our plan. To build true ownership, we first needed to get onto the same page of our fundamental priorities. So I asked, how about we talk about trade-offs? I asked them, where do you think on these sliders, where are we today? They talked about the ambitious deadlines they have. They have features that's not working, and no matter how long and how much money they put in to fix it, they can never get it right. And they agree that time is maxed out, being the most non-negotiable, and quality is on the bottom of their priority list. By not investing in quality, they were sacrificing long-term speed, stability, and customer trust. And then the strategic question, where do we want to be in a year? And then they talked about how they want to feel more confident in their releases. They wish that they won't be putting out fires every day. And they want quality to be the foundation. And this was our common ground. And this simple conversation framed me from the person saying, slow down, to the person facilitating the achievement of our own stated goal. And this moved us from, this is broken, to this is what we value. And it created a shared language for the difficult decisions ahead and ensure that the improvement roadmap that will be built is aligned with their true north. And this is strategy as leadership, creating the dialogue that leads to alignment. And we agreed that quality is everyone's responsibility. And the QA's job was to lead it, not to own it all. When we agreed that quality needed to be a shared foundation, the immediate question was, how? And the first answer was shift left. But let me be clear. Shift left is not about giving developers more work. It's about empowering everyone with more ownership. It's about enabling and empowering developers to write more testable code with confidence. It's about BAs thinking about edge cases and non-functional requirements up front. It's about designers considering accessibility from their first sketch. And think of it this way. Shifting left is not to ask the chef to also wash the dishes. It's about giving the entire kitchen team the recipes, thermometers, training to get the dish right the first time so that there's less to clean up. It's about prevention, not redistribution. And my job transformed from being the only person writing automation tests, looking for bugs, to being the coach who helps everyone think about quality and build quality in. I started influencing by asking questions. Instead of saying, this is broken, I ask, how can we prevent this? And when a defect happens, we talk about root cause analysis and traceability. And we're talking about beyond just knowing a bug exists. We're talking about building a system to understand why it exists. By asking these questions, was the requirements unclear? Was the logic flawed from the start? Did we miss an acceptance criterion? And this creates a clear link between a defect and its original related requirement, and allows us to diagnose the root cause in minutes, not in days. And this makes us smarter. Every bug becomes a lesson that improves our entire process, from how to write requirements to how to write code. It turns the chaotic bug hunting process to a precise diagnostic process. And that's a game changer for sustainable quality. So, we started shifting left. From being the only person writing automation tests and caring about the results, we started bringing in developers. We showed them what we're testing. Why are we testing this? And why is it important to keep them up to date and stable? We showed them how to triage, how to view the test reports. We also started collaborating and coaching the developers to create a healthier test pyramid. Apart from just thinking the acceptance criteria, we also think about what tests we need to write and which level in the test pyramid we should test them. Now we're working on quality code, but we also need to get the requirements right. We brought the BA along this journey too. By collaborating with BAs, QAs, and developers, being the three amigos, we gain a deeper understanding of the requirements and understanding where the business is coming from. We can collaboratively think through the potential testing scenarios. And by leveraging AI, we could create test plans and turn those test plans into automated tests easily. And this proactive approach allowed us to design more effective tests, catch issues early before they become one even, and ensure that quality was embedded from the start. But we needed to shift further left. We need to be involved in the solution design phase. We could identify and mitigate risks early, and that would save us time for rework. One example I have was we spent 2 months trying to redo our front end simply because our design was not accessibility compatible. Had we identified that issue or risk early on and do something, maybe we'll save 2 months of time. And the early focus on these aspects allows us to mitigate risks and ensure that the solution meet both functional and quality expectations. And shift left transforms quality from a reactive checkpoint into a guiding principle that shapes the entire software delivery lifecycle. We also needed to shift right. So what is shift right? It's about monitoring, observing, and learning in production from real user behaviors. It helps us identify issues quickly because you can never test everything in a pre-prod environment. And real users do things you can never imagine. We can monitor error rates, page load time, user engagement, and this is the real-time testing feedback loop. And we also need to make sure the alerts that we get are effective. We need to make sure that the message we get allow us to identify issues easily and make sure we can action on them. We also adopted canary releases and feature flags. By using feature flags, we could ship out stories one by one instead of a bundled release. We can also pilot a small percentage of users when we're ready to turn the whole feature on. And that will give us the feedback about when we can roll it fully out or having improvements planned. Apart from proposing shifts left and right, I analyzed the top priority code repositories. I looked into the code and tried to come up different approaches for different repositories on how to improve test coverage for them. For example, a front-end repository, we could focus on the most risky component and improve the test coverage, and then move on to other components. Whereas for a small repository, we could leverage AI and scan the code repository, generate test documentation, and according to that, we can ask the AI to help us increase test coverage. And this is the option to fix everything now. And of course, you're thinking, this is unrealistic. No business is going to just stop and do that. And so is this business. And of course, the option they chose was to improve as you go. Just like you're renovating your house while you're still living in it. It balanced the need for immediate progress with the reality of business constraints. And this is the best plan, because best plan is one that gets implemented. To understand the impact of the new strategy, we also changed the way we report metrics. Instead of just reporting 5 tests failed, we started reporting on test coverage and cycle time. We connect test coverage to the confidence of releases. And we show cycle time as a proof that our strategy is working. And this chart tells the perfect story. Story 1, without much automation coverage. spent most of the time in bug fixes, manual testing effort, where story 3, with high coverage, sailed through much faster and spent minimum time in bug fixes and testing. And this is the tangible evidence that we allow us say, shift left if it's working, and the business understands exactly what it means and trust it. We connect our work directly to the common goal, a safer, faster, reliable delivery. I need to roll the test strategy out to the whole organization. As the quality lead, my job is more about shaping mindset, behaviors, and ways of working, rather than imposing rigid rules or telling people how to write tests. Because different teams have different structures, and they use different frameworks and different tools. My job was to define the guiding principles. For example, test early and often. Automate intelligently. By prompting the team to think about what to test and where to test and how can we get fast feedback. And this allows the team to find their own path to meet these principles. And they should have the freedom within the framework. Apart from principles, we also need adaptable standards. And this drives consistency among diversity. By thinking about different types of testing, some common ones that each team will need to do. And this prompts the teams to prepare and plan for anything that's needed. For example, unit tests, security testing, or performance testing. There's also standards of how we report quality metrics. Apart from what I talked about, test coverage and cycle time, we can also report on escaped defect rates and why they failed. We can report on the automation reliability, how many tests were flaky, and how soon were they addressed. There are also CI/CD standards that we can introduce. For example, when do we run these unit tests? When do we run the performance tests for threshold? And which tests should block the build from going into production? And these are the standards we can introduce. And these are like dress codes. You provide the dress code, and your team can come up with their own way and their own fashion sense to meet them. A strategy in a document is dead. A living strategy is a rhythm. We defined milestones so that we can easily track our goals. We had regular blameless review meetings, and to look at our test strategy, look at the test coverage map and our test pyramid, and ask ourselves, is this still right? Is this test still valuable? What's the upcoming business goals? What are the other tools that we can use to help us achieve this? It made quality a living, breathing conversation. And we tracked adherence to principles and refined them over time based on the lessons learned and the evolving business needs. So, you might ask, did it work? The transformation was profound. The conversations changed. I heard a product manager ask, how can we make this API secure? I heard a developer ask, hey, I'm going to take a look at this error in production, and I'm adding a new test for this edge case. The test strategy now becomes the quality strategy, and that's the engine for quality. and quality became the engine for sustainable speed. We had moved the sliders. Quality is now the non-negotiable foundation, which made time truly negotiable. Our job becomes the quality strategist. We're in the middle of the whole team, working with everyone, with all these shared responsibilities. We're no longer just the person that writes test strategy, writes automation, but we also manage risks with product managers and delivery leads. We collaborate with developers to write unit tests. We help the BAs thinking about requirements and write better acceptance criteria. And we make sure the designers have accessible and compliant designs. We become the bridge between tech and business. We align and facilitate the goals between them so that we can all move into the same direction. We are the coach that levels up the whole team, helping everyone working effectively together and have quality built in. We are the guide that leads the true north of quality. We set the strategic direction for quality and embeds principles across the whole delivery lifecycle. And we ensure alignment across processes and practices. So, what can you do on Monday? Map out a path to production if you don't have one. This will take you some time, but be patient. Have a look at your bottlenecks, pain points. Pick one and start thinking about why and ask yourself 5 times why. That will help you get down to the root cause. And collaborate with your team. And as a team, you can come up with many ideas on how to improve. And that's how you can turn ideas into reality. Our quality strategy is our blueprint for leadership. And that's how we shift from being a gatekeeper to being an architect of confidence. It's how we make shift happen. That was on purpose. Driving quality left, right, and forward, and positioning ourselves to be the indispensable strategic partner that our organizations need. Thank you. I think I talked too fast.
What a great start for the day, learning about shift left. Hopefully everyone would have learned more about the shift left. I know it's one of the hottest topic currently in the market, and every organization, whoever wants to go faster, they're looking for the shift left, moving their testing towards left. Prize time. Who is interested in a free socks? Okay. Who is interested in a $50 gift card? You stay here for 3 sessions, you'll get a free socks. Okay. Before we go to the prize, any question for Maggie? Yep.
Pass the parcel. Question on you talked early on about doing RCAs on defects. Is that kind of as a result of when they hit production and it's like a kind of blameless PIR incident management thing, or is that also for lower environments? Like, how did a defect get to user acceptance testing?
Yeah, we sort of did both. So for incidents, we would do PIR, so post-incident reviews, and for us, it was in between multiple teams on how we can do better on CI/CD pipelines with the DevOps people, and also in our own team, how can we catch this issue earlier. And then we also, because we're doing shift left and measuring how much time we're doing bug fixes and why. So for each story, we would track, okay, this is an issue, and why did it happen, and how long did it take to fix that, and how many bouncing back and forth we had. Yeah.
Thank you very much.
No worries.
So, very well presented. I have got a question around. So when you have got a lot of application which is off the shelf, so they just say that, you don't have to go to that level of testing. Have you encountered that situation before, and how did you handle it?
I had a recent experience, so probably somewhat different. I was told that I don't need to go into a specific repository to look into the test coverage, etc. But most issues came from there.
Yep.
Yeah. So this is, again, we're using data, and depending on what you want to do. So if you want to talk about the issues, and you can say, starting from the matrix, how long did it take for manual testing? How many issues came from one story testing? How long did it take? And use that data to communicate with the team, to the stakeholders on, this is an issue, how can we address this? Yeah.
Thank you.
No worries.
Not a question, but a follow-on to that. So in my space, we have a lot of COTS packages, so other people's code. We're currently constructing a rigorous regression suite because too much trust has led to resilience issues and friction in upgrades and patching. So, sometimes the pain eventually bites you and you do something about it.
Yeah, the sooner you address it, the less pain you get. Yeah.
Thank you. I really enjoyed the way you wrote quality is the engine for sustainable speed. I think that's going to be a sentence I'm going to pinch from you. Did you find with any of the metrics gathering that there was any gaming of the metrics, that teams weren't accurately reporting
Oh, all the time.
the bugs? So what did you do to kind of
So
mitigate that?
myself, when I test a story, I wrote like a little record on when did I test this, how long did it take, and then the next time I retested, I write it again on the date. So I kind of have a rough idea of how long it takes. For example, this example I gave, the manual testing, each round would take 2 days. And then when it goes back to developer, it would take another 2 days to fix. And I did that 4 cycles. So by the second time, I started doing the automated testing, which saved the testing effort from 2 days to 10 minutes on the pipeline. So that started to go faster, but then the later the issues we found, the more time the developers needed to fix them. And that whole cycle took 4 weeks. That's something that myself, I have a clear record of what's going on. And of course, we needed to prompt the team to be diligent on, hey, you need to move this card back on this column if you start working on this, etc. Yeah, but there's always the inaccuracy there.
Hi, that's a fantastic talk.
Thank you.
One of the things that really jumped out at me is you said about the squad sort of finding their own path, and I've done a similar project, similar sort of type of work, going from squad to squad. What sort of, in terms of like getting the team on board, the squad on board when it comes to aligning to your vision, what sort of strategy did you have in place from like a sort of a human point of view, in terms of like, getting the engineers, quality engineers to be aligned? Because that's one of the things which, I like to sort of like have a bit of interest in.
Yeah, so just off the top of my head, there were a few things. One way to do this was just go off and build some automation tests and just show people how quick we can build them, how much we can rely on them. We can also pilot teams or features on adopting shift left, and then share those metrics and show that it's working and it's saving the business time and cost in that case. In terms of bringing the QAs on board, sometimes I would pair with them and just see how defensive they are. And then depending on that, maybe I'll pair with them, I'll show them evidence, facts. So I always start with the facts, and nobody can deny facts. Start with that and slowly get them on board.
Great, thank you.
Hi. Could you please elaborate more on the unit test, how you coached the developers? Like, was it in the like initial stages when they were doing dev work? That time you were involved in coaching, and how you came up with the coverage, like how we can figure it out whether it has to be going in the unit test coverage or automation, and did you use any tool for the test coverage? Could you please elaborate more on that?
Yeah. So depending on when I'm free, I would sometimes review the code. So when they raise a pull request, I'll review the code and say, hey, I'm not sure if this is testing the right thing. Can you please review this, or can you add a new test for this case? And sometimes we would talk about that at the start of the story development. We'll talk about, if this is API, what status are we covering, what tests are we doing for 404, 403, 401, et cetera, et cetera. So we list out all these test cases and make sure they're all ticked. So we would have like a little checklist in the story and make sure these are all ticked. And when we do we call it a desk check, when the story is ready to be handed over from developer to QA. And in the desk check, we would have the developer walking through the automation test that they wrote. And we would make sure that everything's covered. And if we needed, to add an integration test, for example, what is the case we want to cover? And sometimes we write it together. Sometimes we think about, we need to build mock service for this. And we think about the pros and cons and say, maybe we need a separate card for this, or we can digest it in the same card. So it's all about conversation and, in this case, sometimes happen later in the code review, sometimes happen a bit sooner. Yeah. Does that answer your question? Yeah. And in terms of test coverage tool, I think the most I've used is SonarQube. So we just report the coverage and report it with SonarQube. We have one of the teams also have this enforced on GitHub Actions. So if you didn't achieve 80% test coverage, for example, on new code, you can't merge it. So that was another way for that team to enforce good coverage.
Hi.
Hi.
I have a question on changing the mentality when you were talking of coaching. When you are asking your team to shift left, and when developers and other engineers have other priorities, how do you coach them and how do you train them to accept this as a new definition of done and do a shift left?
So
one more question, sorry. Yeah. And how do you do it at scale?
Okay, cool. Let me start with this. So when I talked with the stakeholders, so they are pretty high up in this organization, in that department. So the first thing the stakeholders agreed to do was a roles and responsibilities shift, and he gave a talk on this to the whole tech department. So that set the foundation of this is what we're doing, this is what we're going to do from now on. And then, of course, there's going to be resistance in the team, but you just got to keep trying, and you got to keep asking the right question on, why did this happen? Not this is broken. So how can we prevent this bug from happening in the future? Can we add a unit test in? We can use the AI, because sometimes people say, I don't have the time for this. But now we have AI, and time shouldn't be a problem. Okay. What was the tool or thing that I did when I needed to create shared ownership?
Is it the slide again?
Yes.
Come forward.